The following program does not have a normal intro because I was really too busy smoothing other things over to get it done. So, Ori? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Viewers Discretion. I'm your host, Joe Newman, aka Good Lawgic. I'm going to start this off by just saying this. I need to start off tonight by just saying this. I really, not going to kid you. I miss this man. I miss him terribly. I do.
Before you go too far, would have never happened with me. I had Iran in check. You know, we hit them very hard for something that they did, and they had to hit back. They feel they have to do that, and I understand that.
I called this. When it happened, I called it. When Iran struck back, I called it.
Do you know they called me to tell me we're going to hit a certain location, but we're not going to hit it. It's going to be outside of the perimeters.
Who called you?
Iran called me.
Iran called him for permission to strike an empty building.
Called for me, and they let us know, and we had 16 missiles went off. I believe it was 16. 6 or 7 failed in the air.
When was this?
This was prior to the attack on a fort that we had where they hit back. Do you remember when they sent 18 missiles? Or
after he killed al-Baghdadi?
5 failed. They let us know, don't move. We're going to have to hit you back. Psychologically, we have to do that because we hit them on something. You remember.
They have to save face. That's essentially what he's saying. They had to save face, which everyone understood that. They don't save face. They get deposed and executed. So they have to save. So their Iranian leaders had to save face.
They sent 16 or 18 missiles, and we knew they weren't going to hit inside the fort. And the media was going, and now I reveal it, the media was going wild because they say it's strange. They're very accurate missiles. How come they all missed? Nobody was killed, if you remember.
Yes,
with all of those missiles, nobody was killed. Now, they had to do it because they have people and they have to show strength. So they aimed the missiles, but they said, please don't attack us. We're not going to hit you. That was respect. We had respect.
It is. That's what it is. That's respect. It's or fear. He's calling it respect. I would call it fear. Either way, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You're dealing with a terrorist nation. That doesn't matter. So, is he really going to hold one in? Is that really happening? Is that really happening? He's going to hold one in New York? I was like, why would he ever come to New York? I don't know. All right. Well, anyhow, just like that. All right. Well, anyhow, wanted to just share that with you because I called that when it happened.
Go too far. Would have never
happened. Hear it twice. It was great, but we don't need to hear it twice. Yeah. So, yeah, I called it when it happened. I said, don't strike back. Let them hit. Don't strike back. No one died. Fortunately, no one died. And he gave the perfect message. He's like, no one died. No more strikes, or else we'll decimate you. And they stopped. That's how you maintain the fear. You show that you can be reasoned with. There you go. I want to talk to you about something that happened before I get into the whole border bill that the Senate finally unleashed the text. It's not been passed yet by the Senate, but it probably will be passed because it's got bipartisan support, and Mitch McConnell, the schmuck, seems to be supporting it. But before we get into the bill, I want to share with you an exchange that Josh Hawley had with Mark Zuckerberg last week on January 31st. And I'm wondering how you feel about this exchange. A lot of people are very excited because he's, they say he undressed and embarrassed Mark Zuckerberg. And while, look, I don't like Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg is a terrible human being. And I think that the massive wealth he's managed to build for himself, he only uses to make America a far crappier place. So, yeah, I'm far from being a Mark Zuckerberg fan, and yet still, and I'm a big Josh Hawley fan. I really am, but I don't like this. I don't know, it's just me, but tell me your thoughts on it. I really want to hear your thoughts. Some of it's good. Some of it I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, Josh.
To you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Zuckerberg, let me start with you. Did I hear you say in your opening statement that there's no link between mental health and social media use?
Notice how the audience is laughing there. I'll tell you this one. It starts well. He starts very well.
Senator, what I said is I think it's important to look at this.
I also want to just comment and just take note as to how much AI has improved, that he looks human. He looks human again. It's amazing. I mean, aside from the fact they obviously removed his skin and gave him brand new skin, but Mark Zuckerberg looks human again.
Science. I know it's people widely talk about this as if that is something that's already been proven. And I think that the bulk of the scientific evidence does not support that.
Well, really, let me just remind you of some of the science from your own company. Instagram studied the effect of your platform on teenagers. Let me just read you some quotes from the Wall Street Journal's report on this. Company researchers found that Instagram is harmful for a sizable percentage of teenagers, most notably teenage girls. Here's a quote from your own study. Quote, "We make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls." Here's another quote. "Teens blamed Instagram," this is your study, "for increases in the rate of anxiety and depression. This reaction was unprompted and consistent across all groups."
Okay,
That's your study.
Senator, we try to understand the feedback and how people feel about the services.
We try to
Wait a minute, your
understand.
own study says that you make life worse for 1 in 3 teenage girls. You increase
Senator, that's not
anxiety
what it
and
says.
depression. That's what it says. And you're here testifying to us in public that there's no link. You've been doing this for years. For years, you've been coming in public and testifying under oath that there's absolutely no link. Your product is
Hit him on perjury. Hit him on perjury.
wonderful. The science is nascent, full speed ahead, while internally, you know full well your product is a disaster for teenagers.
Senator,
and yet
that's
you
not
keep
true.
right on doing what you're doing. Right?
That's not true. That's not true.
Let me show you some other facts I know that you're familiar with. Wait a minute. That's not a question. That's not a question. Those are facts, Mr. Zuckerberg. That's not a question.
Those aren't facts.
Here, let me show you some more facts. Here,
If that's what your own studies are showing, how are you disputing the data?
here's some information from a whistleblower who came before the Senate, testified under oath in public. He worked for you. It's a senior executive. Here's what he showed he found when he studied your products. So, for example, this is girls between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. 37% of them reported that they had been exposed to nudity on the platform unwanted.
If you let your kids on Facebook, look at these stats he's about to read off here. 37% of Instagram users between 13 and 15 encountered nudity on the platform within the past week. I mean, this means that like every week they're being subjected to this.
Last 7 days, 24% said that they had experienced unwanted sexual advances. They'd been propositioned in the last 7 days. 17% said they had encountered self-harm content pushed at them in the last 7 days.
And part of this is because they're encouraged to whore themselves. Let's face it. They are encouraged because you'll get more likes, and then the algorithm's going to share it out more. And so the more you can sexualize yourself, despite your girl's relatively young age, the more approval social media is going to give you.
Now, I know you're familiar with these stats because he sent you an email where he lined it all out. I mean, we've got a copy of it right here. My question is, who did you fire for this? Who got fired because of that?
Senator, we study all of this because it's important and we want to improve our services.
Well, you just told me
And I
a
think
second
that
ago you studied it, that there was no linkage. Who did you
Senator,
fire?
I said you mischaracterized.
37% of teenage girls between 13 and 15 were exposed to unwanted nudity in a week.
And to be clear, everything that Hawley's done so far, fully support. Hold his feet to the fire. Hold his feet to the fire. Totally support this.
Instagram, you knew about it. Who did you fire?
Senator, this is why we're building all.
Who
these
did you
different
fire?
Tools. Senator, I don't think that's.
Who did you fire?
I'm not going to answer that.
Because you didn't fire anybody, right? You didn't take any significant action.
It's appropriate to talk about like
It's not
individual HR
appropriate.
decisions.
Do you know who's sitting behind you? You've got families from across the nation whose children are either severely harmed or gone, and you don't think it's appropriate to talk about steps that you took?
Get 'em.
The fact that you
Get
didn't
'em.
fire a
I'm
single
happy
person.
to-
Let me
I'm
ask
happy
you
to
this.
talk
Let me
about
ask you
the
this.
steps that we took.
Have you
Would you let me
compensated
speak?
any of the victims?
Sorry?
Have you compensated any of the victims? These
I
girls, have you compensated them?
don't believe so.
Why not? Don't you think they deserve some compensation for what your platform has done? Help with
Senator-
counseling services, help with dealing with the issues that your services caused?
Our job is to
Unbelievable.
make sure that we build tools to help keep people safe.
Are you
You keep saying that like a broken AI. Our job is to make tools. We're leading the industry and making tools and making tools. Yeah, your own survey, your own internal investigations reveal that you're destroying teenage girls, destroying them, just destroying their psyches irreparably.
going to compensate them?
Senator, our job and what we take seriously is making sure that we build industry-leading tools to find harmful
To make
content,
money.
take it off the services,
To make money.
and to build tools that empower parents.
So you
that
didn't
help
take
working
any
people.
action.
And I don't have a problem with him making money. See, over here, he almost starts. This is where he starts going a little bit off the rails. He starts going a little bit off the rails, where he becomes like, this he sounds like anti-capitalist, and some of the stuff that he's about to say over the last 2 minutes of this, I'm like, I don't know what the heck Hawley's doing here. I don't know what he's doing.
Action. You didn't
That's
take
not
any
true,
action.
Senator.
You didn't fire anybody. You haven't
That's not true.
compensated a
That's
single
not-
victim.
that's
Let
not
me
what I
ask you
said.
this. Let me
Okay, so if you want to say that victims should be compensated, okay, perhaps if they're poaching, so to speak, the psyches of these girls for their own financial benefit, then yeah, I can understand saying that there should be financial compensation for that. I get that. I definitely I can understand that. That makes sense. Okay. But here's where things start take a turn for the weird.
ask you this. There's families of victims here today. Have you apologized to the victims? Would you like to do so now?
Well,
They're here. You're on national television. Would you like now to apologize to the victims who have been harmed by your product? Show them the pictures. Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
Yeah, the only victim, there's only one victim of January 6th, and she was shot by a Capitol police officer. So, I don't think that Hawley is going to be compensating her. But I don't like this. I don't like this whole thing here. I don't like this whole bend the knee to the crowd. I don't like these are the only people who are victims of Facebook. I don't like this. I don't think that this is right. I don't think that this is right. I don't think what Hawley's doing here is correct. The whole you have to bend your knee to the crowd is wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong because this isn't doing anything. This is theater. And I understand that most of these dog and pony shows they call Senate committee hearings are just that. They're dog and pony shows. They're theater. I don't like this. This whole you'll bend the knee to the mob, as if like whatever he can say here, assuming an apology would be warranted, as if these are the ones he's supposed to apologize to. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like this. I don't like this move at all. Hawley is building reason for two. Oh, Hawley's building reason for 230 reform. Can't sue. Okay, fine. Okay. But what I'm saying is you can't sue. That's not really what 230 is about. I want to just sort of pause and remind you that Section 230, what it is it's insulation from being charged as a defendant, being liable as a defendant in a defamation suit. It's got nothing to do with the harm that they're affecting here. These victims, assuming they are victims, in theory, could go after Facebook. Section 230 would not afford Facebook any protection. Section 230, what it basically serves to do is it treats them like a common carrier and says, hey, if there's some sort of if they take steps to try and weed out objectionable content, they're still going to be deemed as just a distributor. and they're not going to be fall into the classification of a publisher. And the reason they don't want to fall into the classification of being a publisher is because if they're a publisher, then as a publisher, they can be held liable for defamation when two other people get involved in a defamation suit. So anytime someone would post something on social media, they would be potentially subject, because they're the ones who are helping post it by having the platform. So, and the classification as publisher, because they're taking steps to remove content, that now would have them be ripe for a defamation suit where they didn't actually write anything. They didn't do anything. All they did was house a platform for the public to use. Meaning, if you go and you say something defamatory about me and you post it on a billboard, I could sue you and I could sue the billboard owner, in theory. If you write something defamatory in a book, I can sue you, I can sue the publisher. The publisher might not have written it, but they have enough control over the content that we say you now can be held liable. So at what point would a social media platform be considered to be controlling the content that they are considered a publisher? So now if Katy Perry defames, I don't know, what's her name, Taylor Swift, on Twitter, so Taylor Swift can defame, can sue Katy Perry for defamation. If not for the protections of Section 230, she might also be able to name Twitter as a defendant because they're helping Katy Perry publish it. Section 230 says, no, you can't. She might say, but they're a publisher. They fall in the classification of a publisher because they're moderating content. And when you're moderating content, you're displaying all the authority and control of a publisher. And just like a publisher like Random House could be sued, so too Twitter could be sued. Well, Section 230 says, no, not them, not social media platforms. Even if they're moderating content, they're still never going to be qualified as a publisher. So that's what Section 230 does. It was very important, certainly in the early days of social media, for them to have that protection, because they weren't able to see in the blink of an eye the millions of posts that were going up. Now they probably have sufficient AI; they could probably readily do it. But anyway, and the problem with Section 230 is that the idea behind Section 230 is we wanted social media to be able to moderate content. We wanted them to take down things that were very violent, or things that were pornographic, or things that were harassing others. So we wanted them to engage in that. So we said, now that we're going to tell them that we want you to do that, we're going to punish them for that by saying, by doing that, you're now labeled a publisher and now can be sued because Katy Perry said something bad about Taylor Swift, lied about Taylor Swift. That doesn't seem to make sense. So in order to encourage social media to engage in monitoring to the best of their abilities, that's why that protection was laced in there. But they also put in there that if it's anything falls under pornographic, violent, harassing, or otherwise objectionable, and social media companies have taken that phrase, or otherwise objectionable, to basically say, well, we find anything Trump says to be objectionable, so we're going to take that down. So they really are just, they haven't said that precisely, but in large part. So now you would think normally, if they were a publisher, you would think that's really exercising publishing control. And now they should be ripe for it. Section 230 protects them from that. It allows them to basically silence whoever they want to under the auspices of it being or otherwise objectionable. That's what Section 230 is all about ultimately. And that's why a lot of people have a problem with Section 230. And properly so. It does need to be reformed. But this over here that he's doing with the bending of the knee, where he's like, you've ruined these people's lives, or ruined their daughters' lives, or whatever it is, now go apologize to them. This is not something that is a healthy way for America to act. It's just not. If he owes them money, pay them money. But for him to be shamed, for them to all sit there saying shame, 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 this is like, I don't know what the hell's happening. I don't know what this is. And he's about to bend the knee.
I'm sorry for everything that you have all gone through. It's terrible. No one should have to go through the things that your families have suffered. And this is why we invest so much and are going to continue doing industry-leading efforts to make sure that no one has to go through the types of things that your families have had to suffer.
So there you go. So now Hawley has successfully made him bend the knee to the mob, which this is what woke people do. And then suckers from the right will fall for it sometimes. This is terrible. This is terrible. I don't like this at all. I don't like this. And I hate the fact that I really like Hawley and I really despise Zuckerberg, and I have to stand up for Zuckerberg here. That bugs me a lot. A lot. I don't have to stand here defending Zuckerberg. He's a schmuck. He's an evil, arrogant prick who's made America a much worse place. A much, 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 much worse place in a myriad of ways. But I still think that this exercise here was wrong. So I need to call it out. And even though I like Josh Hawley, I think he was wrong for doing this.
You know, why, Mr. Zuckerberg, why should your company not be sued for this? Why is it that you can claim, you hide behind a liability shield, you can't be held accountable? Shouldn't you be held accountable personally?
I'm not sure about the liability shield because 230 doesn't really protect him here. It doesn't. If they're rigging algorithms in a way that are purposefully designed to motivate girls into doing something toxic, in theory, there could be a lawsuit for that. You need to come up with cause of action. It'd be tricky, but it's not like they could say, oh, Section 230, dismiss it, the way they would with a defamation case.
Will you take personal responsibility?
Senator, I think I've
This
already
is the other thing also. Will you take personal responsibility? What does that even mean?
answered this. I mean, these
We'll
are
try
serious
this again.
issues.
Will you take personal responsibility?
Senator, I view my job and the job of our company as building the best tools that we can to keep our community safe.
Well, you're failing at
and
that.
Well, Senator, we're doing an industry-leading effort. We build AI tools that
nonsense. Your product is killing people. Will you personally commit to compensating the victims? You're a billionaire. Will you commit to compensating the victims? Will you
What the heck is that? You're a billionaire, you're rich, so now you should be personally liable? I don't understand what I'm seeing here. I don't understand this. You should be personally liable for this. Look, is his company evil? Yeah. Is he personally evil? Yeah. But that doesn't mean that he's personally liable for Facebook. I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm like, how is this related to anything related to America First or American values? I don't get it. I'm not understanding it. Maybe one of you can walk me through it. Somebody, and drop a comment down below. Do you think that this is something that is reflective of a MAGA type of perspective, as you understand a MAGA perspective? That we should be pushing him and say, oh, you're a billionaire, so you should cover it. That sounds like something AOC would say, for crying out loud. I don't know what the hell I don't know what's happening here. I'm watching this and I'm like, did he really just say that? You're a billionaire, so you should just pick up the tab on it. What does that even mean?
set up a compensation fund
Senator,
with your
I
money?
think these are
With your money.
complicated- Senator, these are complicated
Yes, no,
issues.
that's not a complicated question, though. That's a
Senator,
yes or no.
this is-
Will you set up a victims' compensation fund with your money, the money you made on these families sitting behind you? Yes or no?
This is like now that I shamed you into bending the knee, now I want you to be personally liable for what you had your company do. I mean, look, does he have a significant interest in Facebook, Meta, whatever the hell they call it these days? Yeah. But we've long recognized that there's corporate protection. So if in fact Facebook did something wrong, go sue them and get your money. Why that he's supposed to set up a fund now or something like that? Because he's rich. If he was a smaller person, if he didn't make as much money, then we wouldn't say it to him. But because you're a billionaire, now you do. I don't understand what I'm listening to here. This makes no sense. Am I crazy for saying this is wrong? Am I the only one who I don't know. I'm wondering if I'm alone here, or if you guys really agree with this. I don't understand this.
Senator, I don't think that's my job is to
Sounds
make
like
sure
a
that we
no.
build good tools. My
Sounds
job
like a
is
no.
to make sure that
Your job is to be responsible for what your company has done. You've made billions of dollars on the people sitting behind them. Are you here? You've done nothing to help them. You've done nothing to compensate them. You've done nothing to put it right. You could do so here today, and you should. You should, Mr. Zuckerberg.
All right, so there you go.
Good evening, London. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Ben Shapiro.
I don't need to see this. All right, I am going to put up a poll because I am curious whether you guys think that this is something that makes sense. Let's do a poll. Was Hawley right to make Zuck bend the knee and or compensate? To push. Yes, no. Apologizing. No apology. All right, so I was wholly right to push Zuck to bend the knee and or compensate. Facebook victims. And then I have yes, bend the knee and apologize, bend the knee / apologize and pay, or no, or only on apologizing. No pay. And then I have no apology, but pay personally. I'm very curious how this is going to go. Let me check out super chats here. I'll say something unpopular. It's not Facebook that's harming girls. It's mostly other girls via Facebook. Female humans can be very, very cruel. But the algorithm does reward them. It rewards them for self-sexualizing. It does. It does. The way it's set up, we know that's what it's going to do. Holly's standing up against people as product. I appreciate this. Okay. It's an interesting concept. Saying that you're turning your own consumers into the product, which he is. He is. But the reason you're going on to Facebook is because you want to see what other people are putting up there, not because there's something there on Facebook specifically. If there was no content being put up there by other users, you wouldn't be going there. So that's true. All these social media platforms operate that way. I don't like it either, but he's using their own tactics against them, hold them to their own rules. Okay. Political article, legal shield for social media is showing cracks. Some lawsuits are making it past Section 230. Yeah, because they're not rooted in defamation. I think a lot of people misunderstand Section 230. Go look at Section 230. You'll see. You'll see that everything I said was right. 33 states have filed suit versus Met on this topic. In Northern California, filed court case 423 CV 05448. Okay, I appreciate that you gave me the caption and index number. What I'm saying to you is, when you give me the caption, give me the index number. And what I'm saying, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be sued. That's not what I said. I said if there is a lawsuit, go after them. I'm simply saying to say, Mark Zuckerberg, you must apologize to this random assortment of people here and set up a compensation fund from your own pockets. That doesn't feel very American to me. If they're liable, they're liable. Go after them. If they broke the if they're civilly liable or criminally liable or any way liable, go after them. If they're not, then they're not. But saying that he's personally now obliged, I don't know. To me, it just feels weird. It feels hypocritical. Zuckerberg's own man could have not apologized. Yeah, he could have. There's a lot of pressure there on him. He's got a whole room full of people yelling at him to apologize. pretty much. They're all applauding Hawley when he's saying you should apologize to them. It's Instagram, not Facebook. Facebook is far more moderated than Instagram. Parents are responsible for the children's use of social media. Okay. So you're saying that he's not to blame at all, which is makes this even more egregious. And I do think that parents who allow their kids on social media are, I think they're passing the buck on their parenting. Let's put it that way. Trump and Jones were sued for the same thing you're preaching about. Fair is fair. The libtards opened that door. Okay, so this is an interesting thought. This is why I wanted to have this dialogue. They were sued for the same thing I'm preaching about, personally and directed to bend the knee. I don't know. So I'm trying to think. So Trump, with respect to E. Jean Carroll, that's really him personally. That's not a corporation thing. And it's also not a mob, right? So I'm not sure that Trump is the same thing. Alex Jones is closer to the same thing. He's working for InfoWars. He's providing entertainment for InfoWars. And he certainly seems to be more directly, and I think what happened to him was terrible. Terrible. It was like a terrible injustice. That then to get a judgment against him personally, I think is really messed up, rather than just against InfoWars. But there you can see where he's the voice, and he's the owner, and he's the voice. He's the one who's actually doing it. You can understand that the credibility behind the statement, even if it was InfoWars, it's because of people's trust of him personally. Meaning, if InfoWars had put it out there, it doesn't have the same gravitas as if it had put out the statement, the purportedly wrongful statements about Sandy Hook. It wouldn't have had nearly the same impact if it's being said by any other host of InfoWars. So it's the fact that it's coming from him that's amplifying it. And again, that's not to give justification to the judgment or the award or anything against Alex Jones. What I'm simply saying is that's very different from Mark Zuckerberg, who's purely the owner. It's not because Mark Zuckerberg is Mark Zuckerberg that people are using Facebook. People are coming to InfoWars because of Alex Jones. They're listening to InfoWars because of Alex Jones. You could see a far more direct link, a far more direct nexus to the harms. So, but I mean, this is an interesting comment, though, that you're saying. But let's put that aside. Assuming that the link was the same, does using their tactics against them, is that something that's a leaning to a healthier America? I don't know. I have real questions about that. Yeah, in arms, that makes sense. In self-defense, it makes sense. And a lot of people would label this self-defense. And this is a really interesting comment. It's a really interesting comment that you're making here, only because conceptually, the idea of using the illicit methods of your enemies, is that something that's appropriate? And we see this issue comes up in 1,000 different ways, far beyond just lawfare. We see this come up with respect to elections, right? We see it with respect to disingenuous arguments. But at what point do we start thinking like maybe we're destroying the very thing we're desperately trying to save just because it's become us versus them? I have real problems with this. Because I think that embracing this philosophy, and you're not alone in saying this, Darth Cajun, a lot of people think the way you do. A lot of people feel the way you do. And it's not a crazy thought at all. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm being dismissive of this. I just question the long-term logic behind this, because ultimately this is self-defeating. Because even if you end up winning the war, whatever you save, because now you have a country that this is the norm. You're like, this is okay. This is the way things are supposed to be done. You're never going to put that genie back in the bottle. So what the hell are we saving at a certain point? Life of Brian says, you only get thrashed in debates if your own team feels embarrassed by your performance. Even so, did you see Greenwald thrash Destiny one-on-one? I saw bits of it. I didn't get to watch all of it. I saw bits of it. I feel as if a lot of those arguments are hosted in front of the left. Like it's like this is content by the left for the left. That's what I feel happens a lot. So that invariably the audience will feel like our side won. They'll throw up a poll at the end who won, and you know before it starts. Like before it even starts, you could put up the poll who won, and the person arguing for the left will get more votes before the debate starts than the person on the right will get the entire time. And if the person on the left literally spent the entire time drooling, they would still win. I mean, literally drooling. I mean, like there's a pile of gloopy drool hanging from their mouth. They still win. So it's like, does your opinion change if he was found to be complicit and knew about how the algorithm drives these issues and did nothing about it? And then we start talking. Well, that really questions as to like, or let's make it even worse. Let's make it. I'll take your example here, Zachary, and say, let's say he's the one who came up with the idea and wrote the algorithm on behalf of the corporation. Should he have corporate protection? American policy tends to be very broad in favor of corporate protection. Forget about just knowing about it. But let's say he actually conceptualized the idea and wrote the freaking algorithm. It would be novel. As far as just looking at American jurisprudence in its own encapsulated place that it is, rather than it's Zuckerberg, so let's get him. When you start bending the laws because we don't like Zuckerberg, then you're justifying bending the laws because they don't like Trump. That's what you're doing. You have to recognize the ramifications. Just put yourself on the other side of the equation and just ask yourself, like, at what point are we no longer the good guys? Everyone would cheer to see Zuckerberg get hit with a $50 billion personal liability suit. Everyone would cheer. Everyone would cheer. Or not everyone, but a lot of people would cheer. And I ask you, what are we saving at the end? I don't know. I'm very bothered by this stuff. Maybe I'm too much of a purist. I'm too much of a baseball purist also. I don't like that in extra innings they put a guy on base. I don't understand what the hell's happening even. I'm too much of a purist. Maybe I'm not good for politics. I don't know. Only if there's serious intent to punish Zuck severely for his 2020 antics and general censorship, pimping, and fight fire with fire generally. Okay, so now on this, I'll tell you, I do think that I would go after him for. This is something where he's basically trying to destroy our American political system with what he did. He really was. I think I think there'd be criminal liability for that, for what he did in the 2020 election. I really do. This was election interference. He's basically pumping out to the left, go vote, 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 and not sending anything similar to the right. I mean, that's insanity. Have you voted yet? Oh, you did? Oh, okay. I mean, it's craziness. Just curious why you cater to YouTube and use it as your main platform when you have more viewers on Rumble. Do I? You're asking a good question. Why I cater? That's interesting. I got a Rumble rant which says, I'll come back to that in a second. I got a Rumble rant because I was curious to see whether now that I merged Rumble into StreamYard, whether I would see Rumble rants on StreamYard, and I don't. They don't pop up. Dano says, State of Michigan holds parents responsible for their shooting child up at school. Josh holds Facebook responsible for kids going on Facebook. That's a very interesting comparison. State of Michigan holding parents liable. See, here's the thing. You know, when I was having a conversation with Branko about this, and he made me think through various types of scenarios where gross negligence should create a criminal liability. And he actually convinced me. He convinced me, like I started picturing, and he didn't really use this example. I was listening to someone else discuss this example. It might have been on Lawyer No when I was reviewing his stuff. And I plan on covering that, his take of the closing and the cross, because a lot of what he said, and I just want to, before I go any further, tell you that I have great respect for his legal acumen, his litigation skills, and the integrity with the way, with his intellect, and the way he presents himself, and his work product and his YouTube product is just amazing. I highly recommend his channel. Very big fan of his work. I've learned things from him, and I'm sure you could too. So no one should take this as any sort of diss. But I do disagree with a lot of his take about what happened in Crumbly. And it's really a strategic type of thing. But I think it was on his show that someone had put out a super chat or something to the effect of, like, what if they had seen that picture a day earlier and then sent him to school the next day? Let's say the parents alone had seen that picture and then sent him to school the next day. Would that be gross negligence? And it just made me think to myself, let's imagine a scenario where he basically comes in and tells his parents, if I go to school tomorrow, I'm going to shoot up the entire school. And they still send. And they're like, yeah, okay. And they don't do anything to secure the gun, and then they send him on to school. I think we can envision scenarios where we could see gross negligence, where we'd be like, what the hell are you doing? How can you be that irresponsible? So I do think that there are scenarios which we could foresee where a parent would be so grossly negligent that we'd be like, you're liable. Let's say a kid said that to a parent, and the next morning the parent's like, oh, it basically says, I'm in the mood to go get crack cocaine. So I'm going to go send you off to school, and you go do whatever you're going to do. Take a gun, don't take a gun, I don't care. And says to him, hey, don't kill anyone today. And then they go off to their crack dealer and then come home and basically shoot themselves up with crack while their kid is going off running around the school like offing people. You don't think there should be criminal liability for that? Because I think at a certain point it'd be like, yeah, okay, I get that. You were just completely negligent in your parenting to a degree there's a certain duty you have to make sure that your kid is not going to be destroying lives. So I can get to that place. Do I think that the scenario we see with the Crumblies is remotely close to that? No, not even like by a light year. I think it's crazy. That their judgment calls as far as like parenting is now being held against them. That's asinine from this case we brought. But I could see a scenario where the gross negligence of a parent should create a criminal liability. That you're just sending your kid off to school, you're shooting yourself up with crack cocaine while they go off to school. Like they told you they're going to go shoot up the school, and you do nothing about it. I can feel that one. So you're asking why I cater to YouTube and use my main platform when I have more viewers on Rumble, which is not true. There's 367 on Rumble and 800 in YouTube. But even if the numbers were reversed, the reality is, to answer your question, Go for Big Guy, it's a fair question. The reality is that if that Rumble, there's just reality of as far as like trying to feed my family. So what I earn on YouTube covers my monthly bills. If I took a year's worth of Rumble, Rumble earnings, I wouldn't cover a week. I mean, it's that significant, the disparity in the earnings from Rumble versus the earnings on YouTube. I can't explain why it is. I'm not passing judgment on anyone, whether they're watching on this platform or that platform, but that's just the reality of the beast. That's the nature of the beast. You super chat me here. You didn't do it on Rumble. And apparently a lot of people feel the same way. And I'm not passing judgment on anyone. I make much more for every Rumble rant I get. I'm pretty sure I make more per Rumble rant. On a $5 Rumble rant, I make more than a $5 super chat. And still, despite that, I literally make 50 times as much on YouTube as I make on Rumble. So I can make a living on YouTube. And if I try making a living on YouTube, if my year's worth of earnings in Rumble, I don't think that it covers. Maybe it would cover. Maybe it would. I don't know. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. That I might cover like a month. So all my earnings of a year would cover like a month of my expenses. But it's a joke compared to YouTube as far as the earnings. I can't explain why, but that's just I gotta live in the reality that exists. I agree the forced bending of the knee was trash. If they get the same protections as communications company, then why don't we break up the monopolies like we did with the phone company back in the day? Oh, so there's a thought that they should be treated like common carriers. And that if we treat them like common carriers, and in that case, you wouldn't need Section 230. No, the simplest answer is just remove those 4 words or otherwise objectionable. Say you're allowed to remove something that is violent. You can remove something that is harassing another person. You can remove something that's pornographic. And after that, you have no authority to remove anything. And if you do, that's publishing. And once you start publishing, you can now be held liable for defamation that Katy Perry does against Taylor Swift, or John Doe does against Frank Schmuck. Out of the 118 billion, only 20 billion goes to the border. Yep. Also, 5,000 is over a 7-day period. No, it's 5,000, averaging 5,000 a day for 7 days, which is much better than what we were hearing about a few days ago. Is it 5,000 over a 7-day period? That's what you saw. I haven't looked through the bill. I'm looking through it now with you guys. I'm gonna be looking through it. I started glancing through it. First 200 pages are like appropriations, and it's basically money disbursements. And before they start getting into policies, right always goes higher ground while left uses rules for radicals. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. I understand what you're saying. And I get this. I'm not saying that this philosophy is wrong. I'm simply saying before it's embraced, I just wonder at what point are we actually are we self-immolating? At a certain point, it feels like we are just self-immolating. Replace Instagram with pews and replace Zuck with pew manufacturers, and the Republican circus becomes apparent. Ironically, Josh should be ashamed of this. If we replace Zuck with pew manufacturers, yeah, you could see this. You could see the left having a congressional hearing like this and bringing in manufacturers of pews, and then basically saying you should apologize to this person who's a victim of a school shooting and this one who's a victim of that and whatever, and set up a compensation from your own pocket. It's crazy. We've tried every other civil way. Sometimes you have to use their playbook turnabout. I get it. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just asking questions. Sometimes you have to get off to get to often. I think a lot of you feel the same way. Super sticker. Thank you, Brian Ogden. Choosy Heretics. Thank you as well. Even though some people say you're a bot. I don't know how that is. I've heard someone once came to me and said, "Oh yeah, Choosy Heretics, choose Carnation Revolution now is a bot," and I'm like, "Really?" So I never heard of a bot that sends super chats, but I'm not going to complain about that bot. All right. And Hands One Pack says, should parents be criminally liable for kids' property damage like graffiti if they knew they were doing it? There's a difference between knowing they're doing it and giving their blessing. There's also a difference. You can't compare graffiti to destroying lives. H. Coffee says, one difference with Facebook versus Pews is Facebook's algorithm that rewards self-destructive behavior. Hawley could have focused more on that aspect. Yeah, I agree with you. Would have made it a little better, because that's an important element to it. Anyway, let's get into this border bill. Let's do it. You ready? Here we go. starts on page 205 when they start getting into policies, which is where we're going to begin. It's all the first 200 pages are basically how they're spending $118 billion, and this piece going there, and this piece going there, and some pieces going to Ukraine, and some going, and foreign aid all over, and massive pieces going to Ukraine. There was some reference to monies going for Israel and its Iron Dome, and roughly, from what I recall, 20 billion sounds about right. 20 billion going to the border out of the 118. So I think I saw Laura Loomer claimed it was 60 billion to Ukraine. When I went through the numbers, it didn't seem to be quite that high. But I was like, I wasn't pulling out a calculator. But it's far more going to Ukraine than going to our southern border. Far more, which is shameful. It's humiliating. And it makes me think to myself, this is why Mitch McConnell signed off on it. That and the fact that I think he wants the House to lose seats next election. Because what's ultimately going to likely happen here is might not even make it to the floor of the House, or if it does, it may not pass. And this will be a way for everyone to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you can't sign off on this bipartisan bill. You're just complaining about the border. You don't really plan on fixing it. You just want to complain and not fix it. Even though this doesn't fix anything. But let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got. Okay. In general, Chapter 4 of Title 2 of the Immigration National Act as amended is further amended by adding the following. In general, in order to respond to extraordinary migration circumstances, it shall be available to the Secretary, notwithstanding any other provisional law, a border emergency authority. Okay? So there's this border emergency authority. We'll come back to what that means or how that kicks in. What are the exceptions to the authority? Meaning, authority is when we're going to basically be clamping down on the border. Who are we never clamping down on under this authority? So it's not going to apply to citizen or national United States. If you're an American citizen or you're national and you come to the border, they're not going to keep you out. It's also not applying to an alien who's lawfully admitted for permanent residence, an unaccompanied alien child. I'm a little bit wary about this because I don't know how they're defining child. Like, what age is a child? Is a child? If you tell me a child is a 4-year-old, okay, I can go along with that. You tell me a child is 15, I'm less enthused about that. Than you tell me a child is 19, I really have problems with that. So I don't know when they say an unaccompanied child. I got a feeling they're saying 24 is a child. That's my gut says. And I totally agree with Little Galaxy on this. This 100% should. If they're really serious about the border, they would make it a standalone issue. They would. That's how you know that it's all just lip service. Who else is not applying to? It's not applying to an alien who an immigration officer determines with the approval of a supervisory immigration officer should be accepted from the Border Emergency Authority based on totality of circumstances. So someone at the border says, oh, this one's special. Including, I don't know, Jack Bauer shows up at the border. We should let him. Jack Bauer, for El Salvadorian Jack Bauer shows up at the border. We should let him in. I guess. I don't know. He's here to save America. I told you, I'm into 24 now. Sorry. I'm getting to the parts I've never seen before. Okay, so that's someone else that even if we clamp down the border, no more crossing today, it's not going to apply to these people. Also, an alien who's determined to be a victim of severe form of trafficking in persons. So if someone basically was kidnapped and they come to the border after we said, sorry, we're closed for the day, that they can come in. Also, it's not going to apply to an alien who has had a valid visa or other lawful permission to enter the United States, including, this seems pretty broad. This seems really broad. A member of the Armed Forces of the United States and associated personnel, U.S. government employee or contractors on orders abroad. This seems very broad. This seems very, very broad. Yeah, it's not a million people, but it seems very broad. It's also an alien who holds a valid travel document upon arrival at a port of entry. So I wonder who's not in this group anymore. Who's not who? or an alien from a visa waiver program country under Section 217, an alien who presents at a port of entry pursuant to a process approved by the Secretary to allow for safe and orderly entry into the United States. So this is just a generic anyone who the government decides we want to let you in based on some new process that we come up with. All right. When does the Border Emergency Authority kick in? So it'll be activated as the aliens who are not subject to an exception. So anyone who's not in group 2 there, and who are, after the authority is activated, within 100 miles of the United States Southwest land border and within the 14-day period after entry. What is this Border Emergency Authority described? In general, whenever the Border Emergency Authority is activated, the Secretary shall have the authority and the Secretary's sole and unviewable discretion to summarily remove from and prohibit in whole or in part entry into the United States of an alien identified in subsection A3 who's subject to such authority in accordance with this section. So we can remove you at this point. Well, that's nice. Why is that the only person we can remove? I don't understand why we need a new law to tell us we can remove illegal aliens. This is one of the things that's astonishing to me. It's not that we don't have laws. It's that we just don't execute them. This is what's so aggravating about this stupid new bill. We need to pass new laws. Why? Because we don't want to execute on the old laws. Well, to hell with you. To hell with you. So what? So 10 minutes from now, when you basically decide you need more money for Ukraine, all of a sudden you're going to say, well, stop doing this one and I'll get a new law passed. That's what makes this so freaking asinine. Summary removal. Notwithstanding the provision of this act, subparagraph B, Secretary shall issue a summary removal order and summarily remove an alien to the country of which the alien is a subject, national, or citizen, or in accordance with the process established under Section 241. Withholding a convention against torture interviews. Okay. So we're not going to be torturing folks. It's funny because you all were talking to me about using leftist tactics, and I'll tell you something. It's an interesting question because one of the things when it comes to this torture thing, just reminded me that I was like talking about like civil liberties that we extend to foreigners, and I was always the opinion that Guantanamo Bay that everyone found so heinously objectionable. I was like, I don't really get it. Do you think that our American soldiers, if they were taken captive in a hostile foreign nation, that they wouldn't face similar torture? Does it make any sense to handcuff ourselves and say, oh, you can engage in tactics that we will never engage in? Does that make sense that that's a sound strategy? And I am fully cognizant of the fact that the whole take I was saying with respect to Josh Hawley and using leftist tactics is a way of dematerializing who we are as Americans, seems to be the exact 180-degree opposite perspective. That when it comes to dealing with with foreign affairs and dealing with foreign hostile actors, that I'm like, yeah, we got to basically if you're dealing with a snake, you have to get down into the pit and use whatever tactics they're going to use. Otherwise, you're going to lose. And it seems like it's logical to extend that to our internal battle that we're having here in America of right versus left, and say if the left is going to engage in certain tactics and we say, oh, we're above that, we're not going to use those tactics, that you're basically you're subjugating yourself and saying, okay, you win, we lose. I recognize that. Maybe I don't see the left as sufficiently an enemy. Maybe I should. I don't know. The difference that I feel internally philosophically on this issue is I look at people who are in our armed forces or in our intelligence agencies as people that we send out there to help protect us or maintain our physical safety from those who want to see our physical destruction. And have the means and capacity to see to our physical destruction unless we have an ample means to combat them. And I definitely take the threats of the self-destruction of America through leftist policy as deathly serious. It's easier to draw a bright line when it comes to foreign nations and how we deal with foreign nations. That's a very easy line to draw, much easier than when it's an internal struggle of, if not left versus right, uniparty versus the rest of us. I think that if I were to sanction sinking down into the pit, I would really want to know what bright line rules are established so that this is not something that is a tolerable norm. That's like, this is why, and this is how far. So that, assuming ultimately there was success, that we have not become the very enemies that we're seeking to vanquish. I don't know if this makes sense. I'm sort of like fleshing this out in my brain as I'm having this dialogue with you. But I'm very, very concerned about becoming the enemy that I detest. And while I understand that it's the ideologies that are being pursued, not the methodologies, and we're really stealing their methodologies, not their ideologies. And that's a very, very important distinction. Meaning ideology that says that we should enable people to engage in self-harm. Ideologies that say that we should promote equity to the detriment and which is basically, let's just ignore justice and promote injustice. So that's the ideology. The methodology is engaging in lawfare. The methodology is potentially rigging elections. The methodology is in changing language. That's the methodology for promoting the ideology. Maybe we should. Maybe we do need to do it. I don't think it's a good look anyway. Even if I would say, you know what? The only way to vanquish the purveyors of injustice, the only way to do that, to vanquish these corrupt ideologies, is to use the methodologies that they employ. Even if I were to agree to that, that doesn't mean that I think that the methodologies they're employing are not cringe. Like, I just thought the whole thing was cringe. It was very cringe. Asking Zuckerberg to apologize to a crowd, to me, that was cringe. And if he says no, then what? Everything about it was just so cringe to me. No, I'm not going to dig into my personal pocket. No, I'm not apologizing to these people. No. And he throws back at you. I thought you, Josh Hawley, I thought you believe in corporate shield. Do you not believe in corporate shield? What the hell would Hawley say to him? Duh. So maybe I could say, I'm fleshing this through in my brain. You can see, I think you could probably smell the smoke in your house from my brain, just sort of just trying to process this in real time while I'm sitting here talking to over 1,000 people. But that's essentially, okay, I'm okay with embrace. Let's say you got me there. You got me to a place where I'm like, okay, I'm okay with embracing their methodology. That still doesn't mean I want to embrace the methodology that I think is totally cringe and kind of loserish. And that's what I think Hawley was doing there. It's gross. It's gross. The bill is the Senate shifting blame from Biden to the House regarding the border. I totally agree with you on this. Totally agree with you on this. Yep. 100%. And this is a way to weaken the House. I think that this is Mitch McConnell trying to weaken the House. This is Lindsey Graham trying to weaken the House, and Ray Lankford and all these other schmucks in the Uniparty trying to weaken the House, so that they basically can create a speaking point for the left in their election cycle in 2024, and also make it harder for Trump, because basically just create an anti-Republican sentiment. This is stupidity. This is stupidity. We need a long shutdown, government and tunnels to reset. See, there's that little. Yeah, I noticed it. You had the little he/him symbol after your name, reform convict. All right. In general, in the case of alien subjects to the Border Emergency Authority, to manifest a fear of persecution or torture with respect to a proposed country of summary removal. By the way, I just want to pause before I go further. I really want to get your feedback on it. I'd love if you can drop a comment down below and let me know what you think. Do you think that it's proper to engage using the same strategies, fight fire with fire? And should there be lines about that? Should be the limitations on that? I really want to hear your thoughts. I check the comments, so please do that. And also, while you're here, if you can like and subscribe, that'd be very cool too. That'd be super cool. So, in general, in the case of an alien subject to the Border Emergency Authority manifests a fear of persecution or torture with respect to opposed countries. So here we have on torture people. I don't think that this is a common thing, so I'm not really worrying about this. Alien referred for additional proceedings. In the case of an alien interviewed under Clause 1, who demonstrates that the alien is eligible to apply protection under Section 241B. Clause 1 here is this torture person. I don't care about the torture people. I really don't. I don't care about the torture people. I'm not worrying about the torture people. Let's move on to the next subsection here. Let's get to C or whatever you got next here. Activations of authority. Secretary may activate the Border Emergency Authority if during a period of 7 consecutive calendar days, there's an average of 4,000 more aliens who are encountered each day. There's your numbers. There is your numbers. So I don't remember who said it earlier, but you said a total of 5,000 over a week. No, it's an average of 4,000 a day for 7 days. 28,000 people coming in in a week. That's what my point was, Janelle. That was exactly my point. But I guess what you're fighting for is the ideology. You can use their methodology to promote your ideology. That's the distinction. But I don't like employing methodology that is a breach of our own ideology. That's what it is. I got it now. Fine. Thank you, Janelle. You inspired me. Oh, my God. Bless you. Bless you. Bless you. This is what it is. This is what was bothering me about Josh Hawley. This is what it is. Oh, my gosh. There you go. All right. Inspiration. I'm gonna come back to this, but don't lose sight of this, because this is the numbers. These are the key numbers here as to like, oh, we're totally fine with 28,000 coming in here. But we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this. Okay. I was having this whole internal conflict where I was like, I don't like debasing myself and using leftist approach. And then I started basically sort of fleshing out in my brain as far as like what's making a distinction between us versus what makes us different from them if we were using their same strategies and the same tactics. That's illogical to me. And then I thought back to the whole inner conflict I've had on a very similar type of wavelength about torturing, where I was like, you know what? I understand we have an 8th Amendment here. That's fine, but that's fine for American citizens. That should not apply to someone we capture who's not an American citizen, not even in the country, just on some American base, and that we shouldn't be allowed to torture them. I'm like, why would we not engage in the same methods that they certainly would be subjected to if they were caught in China? Why would we treat a Chinese spy any differently than an American spy would be treated in China? Why are we stupid? Why would we handcuff ourselves that way? It makes no sense to me. And then I thought back, because I realized that that's definitely something that just seems to be 180 degrees from what I was saying in the beginning about Josh Hawley, and I don't want to employ their strategies. Well, why am I saying it by the foreign nationals, and I'm not saying it or dealing with foreign countries that I don't want to get down in the muck with them? But I am saying it with respect to Josh Hawley and using leftist tactics when dealing with the left. And here's the difference. And then I started basically fleshing out. I was like, well, there's a difference between methodology and ideology. And I started explaining that methodology is the steps that you're taking. Ideology is what we're promoting. So the difference is they're promoting that, hey, if a 14-year-old isn't really very in a happy mood, let him cut off his own penis. We're promoting saying, no, stop them from doing that. That we're promoting justice. They're promoting social justice, which is injustice. So we are standing for ideologies that are okay. And then I started basically saying, I guess I would use their methodologies. But what was bothering me about the methodology, even if I'm going to use their methodologies, I don't want to use their crappy, stupid leftist methodology of bend the knee, because that's what losers do. That's part of being a leftist, is that you think getting people to bend the knee, even if they don't mean it, is something that's a win. It's a loser mentality. I'm fine with using their methodologies in order to keep up with them in their corrupt corrupt means of trying to promote corrupt ideology. That I'm okay with. That I'm really okay with. But I don't want to use the type of methodologies that they use that are reflective of their own stupid ideologies. That's what it is. The reason I was bothered by saying pierce the corporate veil is because that's a Marxist type of perspective. That's why I don't like it. That's why I don't want someone on the right saying it. It's a Marxist perspective. So by engaging in that method, that type of methodology, we are essentially engaging in the same sort of stupid, we're embracing their stupid ideology. And if we're going to embrace their methodology to the degree that it's affecting and poisoning our own ideology, then we have nothing. However, if the point that we're doing is that we're going to use their cheap, crap, stupid methodology, that is not in a way that is poisoning our own ideology, in that case, I'd be like, okay, you know what? Fight fire with fire. The same way I would fight the Chinese, the same way the Chinese are fighting us. So when they're engaging in impeachment strategies and saying, you know what we're going to do? We're going to harass the hell out of the sitting president by bringing empty, stupid, annoying impeachment things just for nothing other than PR, which is stupid. I'm like, okay, you know what? You want to do it bad to them? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. You're using the constitutional basis. You're coming up with it. You're using their own arguments against them. They use their stupid arguments that this is considered high crimes and this is considered high crimes. You want to throw it back in their face, and that I can agree with. If you're saying that we actually should start piercing the corporate veil against people we don't like, no, that's an American institution that we have here, which you're basically now throwing in the garbage because it's being employed against someone that we don't like. That I cannot embrace. So if the methodology is simply embracing the methodology that's not affecting our own ideology, yeah, okay, I can embrace that. Fight fire with fire. Give them the same BS crap that they give us. Totally fine with that. To help protect a healthy ideology against an unhealthy ideology. But if the methodology they're employing are things that are crap and stupid and rooted in their own Marxist, terribly self-destructive ideologies, that's what brings them to that methodology, I don't want to have any part of that. I don't want to touch that. Thank you, Janelle. Thank you. I don't know if any of that made sense to any of you, but it makes sense to me now. If you have any questions, ask me on Locals. Or I guess ask me in the comments, because I tend to get kind of wordy sometimes when responding to comments. Finally. Oh, wow. I feel like an epiphany. Everything just sort of just rained down. Just all of a sudden insight just started flowing. Sometimes you saw the process in real time. That's how you just watch my brain just like reason out. It always starts with a feeling. It's like a feeling I have inside. I'm like, I can't explain why this is wrong. It just feels wrong. But then eventually, rational thought will interpret what I'm feeling inside. The test I apply right before your enemies eliminate you or throw you in jail for life, will you wish you would have employed their tactics? Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. It's not bad at all. What's the Shah? I'm late, but catching up, heading in the tunnels. Good, good. There's great reception in the tunnels tonight. So there you go. Matt Freehart, if the genie's out of the bottle, the left yanked that genie out long ago. What Hawley is setting up is legally changing the law. If the left has an issue with Hawley's tactics, perhaps they should look in the mirror. I don't know if you would change that now that I just had my whole epiphany. Because I don't think taking the genie out of the bottle and saying, let's ignore all corporate protections is something that feels very American to me. And that's essentially what Josh Hawley was doing with Zuckerberg. Well, we got to change our taxes because we sure aren't winning the fight. Well, I think we're doing better than people think. I'll tell you this much. If it makes you feel any better, Petty Eddie, which I like the name Petty Eddie. Petty Eddie. Crazy little thing called love. I guarantee you that people are sitting there on the exact opposite side of the spectrum, meaning like the short bus riders. They don't feel like they're winning. They don't. Trust me, they don't. They're very frustrated. They're very frustrated. There's been a remarkable number of changes that favor the right over the last 7 years that most people have lost sight of. You sort of take them for granted. The fact that most of the world now recognizes the fakeness of our news. This is not something that existed 10 years ago, even though we had fake news going back for 30 years. That is a development in society, which is 100% attributable to Donald Trump, and it's a development in our society that is a very important thing towards rooting out corruption. The growth of independence, like myself, or people who are far larger than I am. This is not something that happened 10 years ago. Never. It's never happened 5 years ago. The fact that you're sitting here on a Sunday night listening to somebody like me, this never would have happened 5 years ago. Never. So you have other outlets besides CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, or the other stupid corrupt messaging that's out there. The fact that there's an awakening towards populism, towards the uniparty, towards recognizing that it's not really left versus right, but it's them versus us. The alertness that we have now is not something, and that's an important thing. And it takes a long time for that seed to start spreading out into the public. The fact that you're aware of the problems, that doesn't mean that these problems just started now. They didn't. They've been here for a long time. You're just far more conscious of them. That's a step in a healthy direction. Hey, Tim. Mr. Not Leader, I dug too far, broke through a volcano, found some neckbeards thrown along with their magic. The gathering cards. Yeah. You're gonna be one of the first people I name, I think. I was thinking that I need to start giving out following names. People need names. Names are becoming a necessary thing. Holy hell, there's a lot going on in locals. USA Now says retweeting Viva in an attempt for Elon Musk to fund Robert Barnes' Free America Law Center to safeguard American elections 2024 and fight for Amish farmers' rights. This is what he's sharing with me now. I'll bring this up real quick. I'll retweet it. I hearted it. I didn't retweet it, but I don't really believe that it's going to make Elon do anything. This is the thing that he was asking to be retweeted. If this gets 1 million retweets, I'm told that Elon Musk will have to donate to the Barnes Law Center. What? Donate what? $5? What's he donating? I want to know. But I'll do my part. You think it's $1 million, right? That's what you think. I'm doing my part. Fan says, why do corporations have any greater protection than the individual person? They don't. They're just considered separate people. The same way you have a separate protection from your wife or your brother or your father. Can we compare HB2? I don't have time to compare them. I don't. Joe, it's not the left that is the enemy, but the Marxist communist left. Okay. I agree with you on that. Primarily. No, it's not. It's not at all a cult type of cult. I don't even know what you're talking about here. This is just blasphemy. This is blasphemy. In the book of Job, it's very clear. This is not at all a culty type of cult. Put baby lawyer, dude, what? Baby, dude. Why the dude on your tracksuit? See, I think the name is going to be important for the tracksuits because that way, otherwise, if people are storing their tracksuits in their cubbies, you need to know which tracksuit is yours. That's why the names are so important. That's why they're very important. And I don't think that your given name is you need to, because people have different names between locals and between YouTube or Rumble or whatever. So I think people need to have their set following name. I just think it's most sense. It makes the most sense. America needs statesmen, diplomats to help countries keep their own people home. Someone that can inspire folks to make their own country great. Okay. Well, I wouldn't dispute that. I guess I agree with that. J-Rock, 134 checking in, sir. I had a name before you took my passport and driver's license. Okay, your name is Robert Paulson. Okay? Your name is Robert Paulson. All right, J-Rock? Your name is Robert Paulson. Petty Eddie, time's not on our side. Look at a few accomplishments we made compared to the destruction they've inflicted in 3 short years. I don't think you really, but here's what this is what you're missing, Petty Eddie. The destruction is being recognized even by people on the left. They're seeing their own self-destruction. People are awakening. I don't even know what HR 118 is. What is HR 118? What? If you compare it to HB2, make sure to check out HR 25 as well. What's HR 25? Is that? That's the thing about the FCC? I don't know what HR 25 is. I don't know what HR 25. Who the hell knows what HR 25 is? I don't know. Let me get back to make sure I'm good on Rumble. My Rumble ghetto. SDASP says, to an extent, we definitely can't sit back and watch, but our problems is we have ethics which can be our downfall. So this is what I was telling you. This is what I was telling you. This is why I'm so glad I had this epiphany. This epiphany makes a lot of sense. When it comes to using the methodology, there's nothing wrong with using the methodology so long as it's not being used in a way that breaches ideology. That's what I'm saying. So long as it's not breaching ideology. You need to meet the people who are playing the game on the same wavelength that they're playing the game. When I'm simply saying the idea of bend the knee and pierce the corporate veil, let's pretend that we're piercing the corporate veil, or engaging in equity without due process, these are very un-American type of perspectives. To the extent that they engage in election fortification, I want to fight fire with fire. I want to fight fire with fire on that. Certainly not encouraging anyone to break the law at all. Definitely never would encourage that. And I'm serious. I'm not encouraging anyone to break the law. I want to fight fire with fire. You said I was your Breaking Alert follower. That is my follower name. There you go. Breaking Alert. That works. Breaking news. You aren't invited to Law for Day potluck for dissing Saint Nick. I don't remember the dissing ceremony. When was the dissing? So we have another Petty in the audience. Welcome. Oh yeah, we do. We have you and Petty Eddie. Why don't you ever talk about the R2D2 or BB8? I talk about them all the time. I do. Can I get back to work now? I have a job. People want me to do my job. And I was just getting to the good part. I was really just getting to the good part here. Let's get to the good part of this. Because we're getting also everyone's going to lie to you about what the numbers are. I'm the only one who's sharing with you in car. I'm ripping open the hood and I'm showing you in the engine where the parts are. Okay? So here we go. If anyone tries misleading you as to what this bill is actually proposing, I want you to point them to page 211, and it's, I get the right numbering of it, section 3 of, so confusing. Of section 244B of the Border Emergency Authority. God. They bury it, but I found you. Dug you up. Pulled you out. And that's where it says, activations of authority for the border emergency. The Secretary may activate the Border Emergency Authority if, during a period of 7 calendar days, there is an average of 4,000 or more aliens who are encountered each day. Mandatory activation is the Secretary shall activate the Border Emergency Authority if, during a period of 7 consecutive calendar days, there is an average of 5,000 more aliens who are encountered each day, not averaging 5,000 a day. So this is actually more than 35,000. This is more than 35,000. Because if there's one day that they have under 5,000, we start all over again. Or any one calendar day, a combined total of 8,500 more aliens are encountered. Which I can assure you that's not going to happen because they'll say, oh, you can't come in today. We hit 8,000. You got to go away. So that's when you have mandatory activation. So there's discretionary activation if they have 28,000, where there's an average of 4,000 per day, but it's mandatory when they have 7 for a week, when they have 7 straight calendar days, that there's an average of 5,000 or more aliens who are encountered each day. On any one calendar day, a combined total of 8,500 more aliens. Basically, we're totally fine with 1.8 million Americans coming, illegal aliens coming in here every day. Understand this, 5,000 a day is 180,000 a month. Sorry, 150,000 a month. 150,000 a month. Wait, 5,000 times 3. Yeah, it's 150. 150,000 per month. 150,000 per month. Times 12 months. 1.8 million people. That's the only time that it's emergency. So that's not emergency. Oh, we only had 1.5 million people come in. That's not an emergency. On any, now we have to understand what happens at this point. What happens then? Calculation of activation. Let's see how they can try and duck around this. Purposes of subparagraphs A and B. The average for the applicable 7-day period shall be calculated using the sum of the number of encounters that occur between the Southwest land border ports of entry of the United States, the number of encounters that occur between the ports of entry along the southern coastal borders, and the number of inadmissible aliens encountered at a Southwest land border ports of entry as described in subsection A to F. Notice this one thing, okay? It's a combination of border port, between the ports of entry. So we will count people who are coming not at a port. Okay. I thought that this is other land border ports. Okay, fine. I thought that they were going to not count the people between the border ports. So this is good. At least they're counting the people who are between the border ports. All right. Aliens described in subsection A to C from non-contiguous countries shall not be included in calculating the sum of aliens encountered. Hold on. Let's go back to that. Non-contiguous countries. Shall not be included in calculating the sum of aliens encountered. Why would non-contiguous A2C? Let's go back to A2C here. They make this so hard to find. Let me find A2C. An unaccompanied alien child. Okay. Limitations. Whoa. In general, for purposes of paragraph 3, the Secretary shall not activate the Board of Emergency Authority during the first calendar year after the effective date for more than 270 calendar days. What? 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 We're not activating the Board of Emergency Authority during the first 270 calendar days, so it's only for the last 2 months of the year? What the hell's happening here? During the second calendar year, after the effective date for more than 225 days. And then the third year for more than 180 days. When the hell is it applying? This is like 10. There's like 10. What the hell does this even mean? Ray Langford, you are an a-hole. 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 That's all I can say. Okay? That's all I can say. Lying a-hole. Okay? Is it Ray Langford? Is that his name? I got his name wrong. Ray Langford was on the Cardinals. James Langford. I'm sorry, Ray Langford and the fans of Ray Langford. God, that was terrible. James Langford, a-hole. So you tell me, when the heck is this thing actually applying? Because I can't even figure it out. It's not applying anytime in the next year. If we pass this tomorrow, this doesn't kick in until January of next year, the first calendar year after it's passed. So if we pass this tomorrow, so basically it wouldn't kick in until for the first 270 years. Even if there's 100,000 people coming in one day, no, it doesn't kick in first 270 days. Doesn't kick in during the second year, then the first 225 days. And during the third calendar year for more than 180 days. 6 months. First 6 months doesn't count. Nothing counts then. You're counting the first 6 months? What? Why are we counting the first 6 months? I don't even understand this. What the heck is happening here? Who the hell signs off on this? Unbelievable. Section 4, limitation. Unbelievable. So basically, under no circumstances in the next year will this ever kick in. Under no circumstances would this ever kick in before elections. This is crap. This is complete and total hogwash crap. I need to tweet this out. I'm sorry. Not cool sending me a private message while I'm trying to tweet just so you get a little flash of my little message thing. Whoever it is that's watching me and doing that. What was this? All right, let me get back to work here. Sorry about that. I had to get that out. Once in a while, I need to. Chat, you heard it. I am Robert Paulson, no longer number. Goodbye, 134. I am the first name. You are. This is breaking alert. So I don't know. Do we need a ceremony? Should there be a ceremony? Should be a naming ceremony? Should there be a naming? I think we might need a naming ceremony. We'll see. Hey, Herr Leader. I'm not the leader. I'm not the leader of the following. I am not the leader. I'm a follower, just like you. I was just finishing up the work on Tunnel 12 and came across a pair of purple parachute pants with J near Sharpie on tag. I think they're yours from long ago. I've never had purple parachute pants. Gray parachute pants I did have, but never purple. Tucker interview Brett Weinstein on Dorian Gap. Okay. I appreciate the heads up on that. I'll try to check it out. And if it's worthwhile, I'll try and watch it. Sounds like they're saying it cannot be in effect for more than the number of those days in each calendar year. Really? You got it wrong? That's how you understood that? That's not how I read that. That's not how I read that. Now I gotta come back and find it. No. You're saying, okay, this is interesting. It could just be, you know what? It could be that's what they mean. It couldn't be what that's what they mean. So in the first calendar year, you can't have it for more than shall not activate the Board Emergency Authority during the first calendar year after the effect date for more than 270 calendar days. So you're saying the maximum number of days they could have it in effect would be 270 calendar days. I don't know. Maybe that's what they mean. Why would this? And why would they not be? How is this okay anyway? I don't understand how any of this is okay. Why is any of this okay? But you could be correct here, Zachary. You really could be correct. I didn't read it that way at all. It could be correct. Who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? This is very poorly worded. The second calendar year after the effective date for more than 225 days of that year. I was reading during the first 270 days, during the first 225 days, and the first 180 days. You're saying that the maximum number of days that you can have it for more than 270 calendar days. All right, I'm going to retract that tweet. You could be right. You could be right. That's not what I wanted. You could be right. I'm going to delete that tweet. I don't want to mislead. I don't want to mislead people. It is very poorly worded, but you could be correct. I don't know. It's really interesting. All right, let's go forward. That is very poorly worded. I'm sorry. And the fact that it's worded that way, that's scary. But even so, I'll tell you something. I don't like it much better anyway. Because why the hell should we say we're okay with 30 days of this? Why should we say it's okay for like 6 months? I don't understand what the hell is happening here. Why would 6 months of this in year 3 be okay? Grab an image of the bill to include in posts. Yeah, I should have done that. I'll still put that in. I meant to do that. I can do that. Stop that. Nope. Do that again. Downloads. Stupidly worded language. Tell me why it does this, by the way, because I don't understand this. Watch this. Nothing's going to load. Every time I go into X, this is what happens. Nothing loads, and then I have to hit refresh, and then everything comes back. And I don't know why that is. It's very annoying. I can edit post and include picture. Stupidly worded language. It's better that way. Can you let the leader know my shovels? Stop it. I don't know the leader. Does it mean total days of shutdown exceeding that number? I think that's what Zachary was asking. And we now know it's limiting powers, not granting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have to still see what effect the emergency national, what that means. It's like when FDR declared war on Japan, but not for more than 270 calendar days per fiscal year. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah. Otherwise, the first triggering would enact the bill in perpetuity. We need to see. We need to read more of this. Let's read more. Implementation. When the authority is activated, the secretary shall implement the authority within 24 hours of such activation. What happens? suspension of authority. Secretary shall suspend activation of the Border Emergency Authority and the procedures under subsections A, B, C, and D, not later than 14 calendar days after the date in which the following occurs as applicable. In the case of an activation under subparagraph A of paragraph 3, there is during a period of 7 consecutive days an average of less than 75% of the encounter level used for activation. So we get under 4,000, then we're totally fine. We get under 4,000, we're totally fine. In the case of an activation under Clause 1 or Clause 3B, there's during a period of 7 consecutive days an average of less than 75% of the encounters. Waiver of activation, first calendar year, notwithstanding paragraph 3. Because the first calendar year after the effective date, the Secretary shall only have the authority to activate the Border Emergency Authority for 270 calendar days during the calendar year. Oh, so okay, you are correct. Now I gotta take that stupid tweet down. Damn it. That is what it's saying here. You were correct, Zachary. Provided that for the first 90 calendar days in which any of the requirements of paragraph 3 have been satisfied, the Secretary shall be required to activate such authority. For the remaining 180 days that the authority is available in the calendar year, the Secretary may, in the sole unreviewable and exclusive discretion of the Secretary, determine whether to activate the requirements of the Border Emergency Authority under paragraph 3. So they don't have to. This is so stupid. So let's get this straight. So, notwithstanding anything in paragraph 3, the first calendar year, so you have a maximum of 270 days of closing the border. Why it is that we have to be wide open for 3 months, I don't know. But apparently, we can be closed for 9 months. Thank you. Thank you for letting us close our own stupid freaking borders for 9 months out of the 12, which this is retarded that we're having conversations like this. But for the first 90 days in which any of the requirements of paragraph 3 have been satisfied, the Secretary shall be required to activate such authority for the remaining 180 days that the authority is available in the calendar year. The Secretary may, in the sole unreviewable and exclusive discretion of the Secretary, determine whether to activate the requirements of the Border Emergency Authority under paragraph 3B until the number of days that the authority has not been activated is equal to the number of days left in the calendar year. And when the number of calendar days remaining in the calendar year is equal to the number of days that the authority has not been activated, the Secretary shall be required to activate the Border Emergency Authority for the remainder of the calendar year on days during which the requirements of paragraph 3B have been satisfied. What? I'm going to try to wrap my head around this. Let's try this one more time because I'm very confused. Okay, hold on a second. Let's get this straight. Notwithstanding anything in paragraph 3. So paragraph 3 was this part here, where we said that there's when it kicks in. Okay. Then paragraph 3 is when is situations where it will kick in. So notwithstanding anything in that whole paragraph, this is so retarded. Where's lower? I went too far. In the first calendar year after the effective date, the Secretary shall only have the authority to activate the Border Emergency Authority for 270 calendar days during the calendar year, provided that for the first 90 days in which any of the requirements of paragraph 3 have been satisfied, Secretary shall be required to activate such authority. So you must kick it in during the first 90 days. We hit 5,000 for a week straight. You must kick it in during those. Now that's the first 90 of the 270. What happens after that? For the remaining 180 days that the authority is available in the calendar year, the Secretary may, in the sole, unreviewable, and exclusive discretion of the Secretary, determine whether to activate the requirements of the Border Emergency Authority under paragraph 3B. Until the number of days authority has not been activated is equal to the number of days left in the calendar year. And when we reach that point, the number of calendar days remaining in the calendar year is equal to the number of days that the authority has not been activated. The Secretary shall be required to activate the Border Emergency Authority for the remainder of the calendar year on days during which the requirements of paragraph 3B have been satisfied. See, this is it. It's not like it stays forever. It's only on days when it kicks in. It's only on days when it kicks in. On days during which requirements of paragraph 3B have been satisfied. I think there has to be a renewal of their being allowed to come in. This is what I don't understand. What the hell is happening with the 5,000? After we hit 5,000, what the hell is happening to the people who keep coming? Now we're up to 55. It's been a week. We have 5,000 straight. Now it kicks in. What is happening to the people who are coming to the border now? We're not letting them in? Why is it we can't do that before we get to 5,000? Why can't we do that with the first, I don't know, one? Second calendar year. Notwithstanding showing paragraph 3. And why can't we have it for more than 225 days? This is so stupid. Whoever negotiated this is a jackass. James Lankford is a jackass. A complete and total jackass. Yeah, after third year, we cap at 180 days. That's it. 6 months, we have to be wide open. Notwithstanding paragraph 3, beginning of the third calendar year after the effective date, the Secretary shall only have authority to activate the Border Emergency Authority for 180 calendar days during the calendar year, provided that during the first 60 days, and this is so stupid. Plus, if the President finds that it's the national interest to temporarily suspend the Border Emergency Authority, the President may direct the Secretary to suspend use of the Border Emergency Authority on an emergency basis. In the case of a direction from the President under subparagraph A, the Secretary shall suspend the Border Emergency Authority for not more than 45 calendar days within a calendar year, notwithstanding any limitations of the use of the authority described in subsection. Unbelievable. Did I just hear may activate? That means nothing. Yeah, it does mean nothing. We can hope this bill gets stuck in Senate debate. Do they have 2/3 to close debate? I think they do. I think they have it. It seems like McConnell's going along with this. This is why we need to be screaming at McConnell. I do want to take this thing down because I think this is wrong. This is wrong. I'm taking this down now. I'm deleting this. It's factually inaccurate. So remove. Continue access to Southwest land border as port of entry. During any activation of the Border Emergency Authority under subsection B, Secretary shall maintain the capacity to process and continue processing under Section 235 a minimum of 1,400 inadmissible aliens each calendar day cumulatively across all Southwest land border ports of entry in safe and orderly process developed by the Secretary. What? So when we say 5,000, so when we're in an emergency period, we're still going to be bringing in 1,400. Per day. When we lock down, we're still bringing in 1,400 per day. $42,000 a month. In lockdown period, we're at $42,000 a month. a minimum of 42,000 per month. Minimum. So what they're basically saying is this, just so we understand. So we understand this bill a little bit better as we're going through this malarkey. So essentially, if we get, once we allow 35,000, it wouldn't be 1.8 million that's allowed in. That's not what's happening here. This is what they're actually saying. So we're all factually on the same page here as far as understanding what this bill is proposing, why James Langford thinks this is a massive win. Is once we allow in 7 straight days, 5,000, why it is we have to reach that threshold, God only knows. But once we allow in 35,000, in that case, we would then be going forward only allowing in 42,000 per month minimum. Plus any children unaccompanied. Any alien who during the period of 365 days has 2 or more summary removals pursuant to the Board of Emergency Authority shall be inadmissible for the period of 1 year beginning the date of alien. Why do we need to pass this law, though? I don't understand why we need to pass a law to stop people from coming in. If we can stop them, we can stop them. What the hell are you going to do when there's a backlog then? Whatever questions the left is throwing at us as like, well, what are we supposed to do with all these people if we don't let them in here? What are you going to do with them? Are you going to, is it going to be a stay in Mexico policy? What the hell is going to happen with them? What the hell is going to happen? Why is it we can't do this without passing this law, seeing as how all this is doing is basically saying we're going to execute on the laws that are already on the books. So now it's going to become something that's mandatory for the president to do unless he decides to suspend them, which he has the right to do for up to 45 days at a time. This is retarded. This is insane. These are people who have lost the plot. You think this is a win? A bunch of idiots. They're really a bunch of, the GOP is a bunch of freaking idiots. I have no use for any of these stupid senators. Unaccompanied alien children, settlement agreements, nothing in this section will construe to interfere with any rights or responsibilities established through a settlement agreement. Okay. Rule of construction. For purposes of convention reading relating to the status of refugees done in Geneva, July 28th. I don't care about this part. The initial activation authority under subparagraph A or B shall take into account the average number of encounters during the preceding 7 consecutive calendar days as described in such subparagraph, which may include the 6 consecutive calendar days immediately preceding the date of the enactment of this section. So this is why they're saying we're going into effect right away. So if we pass this, the first day will be day 7, basically, is what they're saying. Assuming there have been 5,000 per day, which almost certainly happen. In general, the Secretary may promulgate such regulations as are necessary. So basically, what this is, if you're wondering, this is we'll start locking down the border if you give us if you sign off on 60 billion for Ukraine. That's essentially what this is. We'll start trying to lock down the border if you give money for Ukraine. That's what this is. And by locking down the border, we mean 42,000 illegals minimum per month. What's maximum? Oh, I don't know. Where was that minimum thing? Control F 1400. This. The Secretary shall maintain the capacity to process and continue processing a minimum of 1,400 inadmissible aliens each calendar day cumulatively across all Southwest. So what the hell is the win here? I don't understand what the win is. That it's only going to be 1,400 per day minimum. What's the maximum? All right, we'll try this one. This is set for Trump failure should he win. I don't think so. He can just ignore this crap. Johnson says it's DOA in the House. Hopefully. Sent a summary to your Gmail with username and subject. Well, thank you. We will just talk nicely to them. Yeah. From what I'm seeing here, let me see if your summary finds something different from how I just read this. Because if it's different, then I'm going to try to figure out where I purportedly misread this thing. We sent it to my Gmail. Let me check that out. Oh, there's any problem here. Oh, that's not good. All right, I can't get into my email right now. I don't know why I'm having an issue with that. I have to come back to it. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here. Real Patriots Party says, Joe, my follower name is not a follower because farting dog was already taken. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Oh, okay. A fan says Water Corp. USA Now says, "Geez, don't be a Debbie Downer. It's an attempt, not a guarantee. Elon will do anything." I don't know. I was trying to help. I did my part. Fan says it's a cult been digging tunnels for over a year, and all I have to eat or drink is Kool-Aid. It's not at all a cult. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. It's very much not at all a cult type of cult. USA Now says how China and UN are fueling a not friendly invasion of America by Brett Weinstein. I can't get into that right now, but I am going to try and look at that. I'm going to try and look at this whole Brett Weinstein and the Darien Gap. Apparently, a lot of people think that I need to be looking at this, so I'm going to try and check it out. Okay. Basic policy, and fan says basic policy would be cross only at border crossing points. All other broke laws send back. Border crossing point is the funnel that restricts the overall flow. Here's the thing. If we can close between border places, why is that open? Why is that sometimes open? That's an inexcusable perspective. There's no logic or any sort of basis to say, oh, now you're going to close this area between ports of entry. How retarded a country do you have to be like, oh, if we're in the mood, if certain things get triggered, then we're going to close the non-ports of entry. How the hell is that an excusable way to run a country? How is that not an indictment of our executive branch that they say, oh, this is totally okay, and we have the capacity to close it? We're just not. We're just not. Because that's what they're implicitly saying. We have the ability to shut it down whenever the hell we damn well please. We're just not. That's what's so outrageous. That's what makes this bill so freaking annoying. That's why it should outrage. That's why the proposal of this bill should be so outrageous to every American. Because when you're saying that at a certain threshold, we're going to close off the non-ports of entry, that implies that you have the capacity to do that. And if you have the capacity to do that, why the hell would that ever be open for even 10 seconds? And not only is it open, but they're demanding that you can't even close them for 3 months a year. Why? I don't know. Maybe it's a summer months. Maybe it's a holiday. Maybe they need to come up from Guatemala for spring break. And how dare we demand that they go through a port of entry? It's asinine. The proposal of this bill is a display of just how our country and our government hates us, will do nothing at all to protect us, because they say we do not give the slightest damn who is crossing between ports of entry. Whoever's walking in here, God bless, do whatever the hell you want. We can stop you. We just decided not to. Well, F you. Go to hell. You suck. You are a failure, and you're admitting you're a failure. This is an impeachable offense, because your duty is to protect America, and you're saying to hell with that. These people should burn in hell. They are disgusting. And the James Langfords of the world and the Mitch McConnells who sign off, who basically like, oh, you know what? Let's negotiate a deal so that he's not just allowing any freaking Guatemalan or El Salvadoran or Chinese national who decides to land in Guatemala or in Mexico and just walk across our border, or they could be from any freaking country. They could be Russian. They could be Chinese. They could be Iranian. We have no idea. But if they're walking between ports of entry, we could stop them. We just chose not to. How much of a screw up can you possibly be? How much can you possibly hate your own populace that you say, I don't give the slightest damn about protecting you? That's what this bill is saying. We could stop it. We just chose not to. Who the hell knows what their doublespeak? I don't know. They assume anyone who's claiming asylum is naturally entitled to it. ChatGPT 4 is great at a summary. I don't even know there was a 4. What happened to the first 3 ChatGPTs? So aggravated. I need something like light to sort of chill out before I like zone out for the night. That was just wrong. Terribly, terribly wrong. Van says Brett Weinstein is not, or Weinstein. You're right. It's not Weinstein. It's Weinstein, because that's real. Brett Weinstein. It's not much, only one part of immigration. Watch Muckraker, who's traveled from South America with immigrants. I'll check that out also. Make a little note to check that out. All right. Now I gave myself a stroke. Didn't give myself a stroke, thank God. Are we good? Can I go now? I don't want to read any more of this stupid bill. So no, Chugi, you were mistaken. I saw before the show started. You thought I was going to be against this because of Ukraine. No. I think the only reason that the Republicans signed off on this crap is because of Ukraine. I don't trust them. I don't trust them any further than I can spit them. We could listen to the number 1 rap song in the USA. If you missed it on Locals, I was watching. I got into a very deep conversation today, breaking down Jordan Peterson psychoanalysis of the Tom McDonald Ben Shapiro song Facts. So I was watching that and giving my own perspective on what Jordan was saying. So I thought it was actually a very interesting conversation, but it's a little deep. It might not be for some of you. But you might not be in the some of you. You might be someone who it's for. That's at goodlogic.locals.com. That was goodlogic.locals.com. So, yeah, goodlogic.locals.com. Highly recommend you check it out. Some deep philosophical conversations that we were having tonight, or early this evening. All right, I think it's time for me to land this plane here. It's game time, right? It's game time. I really would like your thoughts. The epiphany I had earlier about when to use tactics, which type of tactics we should use and which ones we shouldn't. I think that I was right on that. Like, it was an epiphany that came to me that I was able to sort of as I was mulling it over. If you joined late, where I was actually processing in my brain until I finally hit on what sounds right and feels right, and I'm confident is right, because it feels consistent in my soul and in my brain. It feels like that's a right perspective. But that's an hour in the past, so you have to go back and check that out. Anyway, that's our show for tonight. I appreciate if you could like and subscribe. Drop a comment down below, because it feeds the algorithm, and my algorithm needs all the freaking feeding it can get. It's starving. My algorithm is like this little me, help me, I stink in the algorithm. If you can fix that, whatever you could do to remedy that, I'd be obliged. I would be obliged. So stay happy, eat the bugs, and as always, my friends, I say to you, Godspeed.